We're going to talk about it. I'm sorry. What was I going to say? Sorry. Oh, yes. We're thankful and grateful for everybody on here. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, uh, who lives a life that's able to be honored. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. You can check her out at Bloom and Flourish, not AND, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree, has many tinctures and medicines for the community. The main one of which for this month is I Am Renewed. And we're thankful and grateful. Getting ready to start, just trying to get the podcast up, and we should be great to go. Alrighty. I believe we have the platforms up and running. Prayerfully, our signal is all right. Prayerfully, everybody can hear and see, no matter where they are. Thanks for being on one more again. Shalom to everybody else coming on. Butterfly Effect, Sister Betty, always bless. Arian, Bounty, Austral. Thank you for the love, Minister Tamara, Ransom, Anthony, Live in the Fog, Carolinas, Alicia, Dawn, Sister Deborah, Sister Beverly, Lottie Dottie, and everybody. We are thankful and grateful for another opportunity in front of you again. Got a little bit of darkness going on with my face. Prayerfully, that'll clear up soon. The sun seems to be coming out on this rising. Oh, thank you, Takia Morena. Thank you very much. Shalom, how you doing? Needed. I still don't have the name in my memory banks. Brother Clem, thanks for being on. Today we want to talk about something crucial. We started talking about this, and I was led to go back into this very much. Amen. Thank you, Sister Betty. Yeah, if you're interested in taking some great natural medicine courses taught by, to me, one of the greatest teachers, if not the greatest teacher to ever exist, I am biased, though she is my wife. Nevertheless, I believe that she is um, she is great enough to give you things. She's definitely taught me things and others things in a manner that she can. Some of you who were on the class last night, she was speaking on, what was she speaking on? She was speaking on, she was speaking on the situation she had where she was talking about a woman that she met and her son had gone through some tough times due to the actions of the father and how it was affecting the woman. And one thing she didn't even talk about was how, I didn't want to interrupt her, but I definitely, um, oh, thank you. You will charge it to my heart, amen. Um, she was talking about the situation with the woman, and she actually had told the woman what she was saying, and the woman said, "Oh wow, yeah, you're right. I do have these fibroid cysts, right?" So to show you how much knowledge she has, she nails these things, and in a sense, therefore, can even give like a prophetic word to somebody because of being inside of her gift. And so we're thankful and grateful. Check her out. Today, we're going to talk about driven by expectations. Driven by expectations, and we've been talking about it on some of the lives before, talking about what do you expect when you give, are you receiving so that you can receive, right? We want to talk about, though, that you're driven by your expectations, and this is crucial. And somebody even put already in the question, somebody came on, I guess, because of the way I'm presented and stuff. I don't mind talking about it, of course, where somebody says, do you believe in white supremacy, right? Which I don't mind the question, do you believe in white supremacy, right off the bat. But that's goes back to, once again, driven by expectations, right? What do you expect? Do I believe that there's a such thing as a white person being supreme over me just because they're white? No. Do I believe that there are people who teach such stuff and therefore have an expectation based upon that? Sure. Right. And because we're driven by expectations. Thanks, Flo. And thanks for being with us. Hello, TJ. So we're driven by expectations. Shalom, Minister Select. How you doing? Prayerfully, you and the family and everybody who's there visiting are doing well, right? So we are all driven by expectations. We are driven, literally driven by expectations. Now, when I say drive, I'm going off of the actual legal term because we're about law. Kingdom law, marital law, natural law, law of expectation, law of first mention, et cetera, right? What does something actually mean? How you doing, chosen one? What does something actually mean by how we would define it, right? Are we driven by expectation? And we are, right? Now, we have to know law because law does what? Law doesn't give us rights, but law protects rights. And so when you look at what the word drive means, lawfully, legally, what is a lawful definition? Thanks for being part of the community, Virgo. When somebody says that you're driving, a lot of people don't know that to drive, that's why you should travel instead of drive. But when you get a license to drive, you're actually legally saying something. Oh, amen, Sister Tracy. How you doing? Right. So you're driven. When you say driven, we're talking about the drive, right? We're talking about the drive. We're talking about drive. Now, what does drive mean? Drive means that somebody says, basically it goes back to even ancient, well, when was it ancient times, hundreds of years ago, where somebody is a coachman. How you doing, Minister Nice? Thanks for sharing the live. So if somebody's a coachman, the coachman was hired to drive. That's where their term driver comes from. So when you talk about this term drive in the legal form, how you doing, Sister Christine? We're talking about something that says that we are allowed or licensed to do something. How you doing, Tree Lady? So to say that I'm driving is a legal term to say that somebody has to employ me to be able to get behind the wheel of the car. Back then, somebody has to employ me to be allowed to be able to take the coach and take somebody who's employed me from one place to another. And I am licensed because the company might say you have to be licensed to be in our employ. And so, and able to be able to take this person from point A to point B, you have been licensed to drive them. You have been licensed to travel, but if you are licensed to travel, you are now a driver, right? So when we're talking about driven by expectations, right? Maybe we should even change it to drive expectations. Matter of fact, I think I believe that's better. We're going to change that to drive expectations. We're driven by expectations, but maybe we should say, well, actually, no, we can leave it there. Amen. Amen. So when we say we're driven by expectations, excuse me, what we're saying is that expectations, thank you, Holy Spirit. We're saying that expectations is what is licensed to be able to take us from point A to point B. Right? If we're driven by expectation, okay, no problem, Janine. So if we're saying we're driven, thank you for the love, Baker. If we're driven by expectations, what we're legally saying, what we're lawfully saying is that expectations are what we license to take us from point A to point B. That's what, when somebody says I'm driven by an expectation, I'm saying that the expectation is what's going to take me from point A to point B. I have licensed expectations. If we're going to go to a higher level, the Most High has licensed expectations to take you from point A to point B. And so the problem, though, is that if you're going to employ expectations, right? If you're going to allow, which you should, right? But if you're going to employ, I want you to think about this. You are the master. You are the boss here, right? And you, as the boss, get to say who gets licensed to drive you from point A to point B, right? So if you have a driver, right? If you go on your Lyft app, right, or if you go on your Lyft app, right? Well, the scriptures we would use that you asked about, whoever said that in Q&A section real quick, Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, Revelation chapter 3, verses 7 through 9. But then we can't stop there. You got to go to Revelation chapter 7, and then you got to go to Revelation 12. Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9 kind of describe that, all that you need. So nevertheless, when we're speaking on driven expectations, we're saying that something's like we license. If you go on your Lyft app, if you go on your Uber app, and somebody shows up to pick you up, right? You're saying that you've made an agreement that this person, you trust this person, and you will give this person license. They actually have to have a driver's license and everything through the company. So you are all right with them licensing them, paying them even, right, through the app, through the company, to ensure that you get from wherever it is, your home to your job, or from your job to your home, or from practice to here, or from here, whatever it is, from point A to point B, from point A to B, C, D, whatever it is, you are saying that I license this person to drive me. And the longer that they drive me, right, the more that they get, the further they drive, the more they get. right? I have an expectation of what's going to drive me. Well, if I'm going to license my expectations, we got to deal with expectations today, right? And that's a huge deal in our community. So going back to the person, I don't even know the person that's still on, but the person who started off by saying, "Do you really believe that there's such thing as white supremacy?" I believe that there are people who carry an expectation that because there is a social construct called white, that they should live better. Even people who say they are your allies, right? That's why we don't worry about allies as much as we worry about people who are down for the cause, because an ally signs a piece of paper with you. That's what an ally is, right? An ally simply an ally simply does what? Signs a piece of paper with you that says that I'm willing to go this far. However, we have a treaty. We have a piece of paper here that says that, look, I'm your ally, but if something goes past these things that we have contractually said that we're both sides are obligated to, I don't have to go past what I signed up for, right? So I have an expectation that's different of an ally than many people do. I don't get frustrated or mad, or I don't say, "Can you believe that this ally actually spoke out against what they said that they were, the people they said they were with?" Well, I wouldn't really, because the expectation is that they have a treaty, like they have a family as well. They have a community as well. And if the rubber meets the road, do you think that they're going to, if their child is doing something against us, do you think that they're going to denounce their child? If their mama, right? Like, I need you to comprehend, like, even with when somebody's asking a question about white supremacy, go back to expectations. What are you driven by, right? um do you have the expectation that somebody says, well, I'm against racism, but then we say, well, what about what your grandmama did, and your great grandmama, and your great grandmama, right? You got a love for them because that's your family. And even if you never met great great grandmama, grandmama told you stories of great great grandmama through the lens of grandmama. That was grandmama's grandmama. So grandmama had love for great great grandmama. She's not going to tell you that great great grandmama was out here cussing people out, or she's not going to tell you that great great grandmama was out here doing was in sexual deviant activity. She's not going to tell you that great great granddaddy was out there doing that stuff, because that's not, she doesn't see it through that prism. So I don't have the expectation that she would see what it is. If she does that, then that's great. But she has to even change her expectation. She has to go to a place that's more honest. I'm sorry, you said beautiful, intelligent tenderness. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Right. Hello, Sarah. How you doing? I'm yeah, history, right? Ancestors are amazing. So you have to comprehend the expectation, right? You have to comprehend the expectations. The expectation. And in order to have real expectations, or expectations that give you real results, guess what we have to do? We have to have realistic expectations, because expectations drive you from point A to point B. We are driven by expectations. What is the drive again? Legally to drive means that you are licensed to be able to take somebody who employs you from point A to point B, or to drive on behalf of somebody that employs you from point A to point B. That's what driving actually means. And thank you for the love, always blessed, appreciate it, right? So we're gonna have to. So when we say we're gonna be driven by something, we're saying we are employing something to take us from point A to point B. That is what a driver is. The driver of a coach is employed, is paid to be able to take you from point A to point B. That's what we're talking about when we're driving. If you're not employed by somebody to take you from point A to point B, then you are not driving. You are traveling. But we're talking about being driven by expectations. Yeah, amen. They'll clean up the family history to make it sound better, right? We're talking about. So even when somebody says, do you believe in white supremacy? I don't believe that a white person is supreme. Matter of fact, I don't even believe there's a such thing as a white person. If you want to talk about real white people, you got to talk about the people you can't see, which are the 1% of 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 the 1%. You got to talk about families like the Rothschild family and others that you can't even see, that you don't even know exist. You don't even know what their names are. Those are actual white people. You never see them. So since we don't come into contact with them, I don't worry about white people, right? But I do comprehend there are people that actually believe that there are white people. You know, you said, I feel like there is no place that is more honest. I feel like everywhere is so negative. Hmm. Thanks for being on, Rooster. Appreciate it. Right. So you have to recognize. You best recognize, right, that when you're talking about expectation, that's what's going to drive us in your marriage. What is the realistic expectation? Do you comprehend that marriage is sex and sex is marriage, even legally? That's why you can walk down the aisle with somebody, but if y'all don't have sex for 3 months, you can go before the judge, and the judge will annul the marriage if you haven't had sex, because sex is marriage, marriage is sex. So the expectation of your marriage, right, is that, or watch this, before you even get into marriage, you should be pre-qualified as a husband and pre-qualified as a wife to be able to have sex. But people don't have that expectation, correct? People have the expectation that once I sign a piece of paper, then I'll be a husband, then I'll be a wife. But you don't do that. You don't decide. Driving expectations. You don't get into behind the wheel of a car with somebody. Like, let's say there's a 12-year-old who's never driven a car. Would you get in the car and just go with them? Of course you wouldn't, because it's not a realistic expectation. I can't allow you to drive me because you're not legally set up to drive yet, right? You're not legally set up to drive. But people get into marriage all the time with somebody who's inexperienced, immature, and doesn't even know what a husband or wife is, and doesn't even know culturally what they're getting into, doesn't even know the political value of marriage. Because when you get married, you are actually getting into politics. You're making a political statement that says that this is my spouse, this is what I stand for, this is what our children will look like, this is what will be taught, et cetera, et cetera. We don't talk about any of that. You go out on dates, you keep having this illegal marriage you're not even qualified for. You're having all this sex and all this stuff that's coming out, emotional value, this and that. You're trying to do all this stuff, and then you say, well, we're not married, I'm not worried about that, and you dip out. And then, but let's say you make it past walking down the aisle together, you still have the same mindset because you were dating, you weren't married. You don't know the difference. Salah, right? We don't know the difference. We don't know the difference. How you doing, Shiny? Thanks for being with us, Mr. Energy. Shima, how you doing? Pool, how you doing? Right? So here we are getting into relationship, and we don't have what? We don't have expectations, correct? We if I it's a bad expectation for me to get in the car with a 12-year-old who's never been driven, never doesn't have a license, doesn't have a permit to even be able to drive. And to be permitted to drive means that somebody has to actually sit in with them who's old enough to be able to make sure that they write down, even in some states, that person riding with the 15, 16-year-old, etc., 18-year-old, whatever it is, that person who's riding with them has to actually fill out a piece of paper saying that, yes, I can verify, if you come to me, you can check in with me, that yes, this person did drive, and they were permitted to drive, but they were with somebody who was licensed. Somebody who was licensed was teaching them and watching their moves, so that by the time they finally were licensed to drive, they can go, right? But your expectations are not even licensed. We have bad expectations. Who is licensing our expectations? You said people get married without meeting each other's families. I mean, that part too, right? Even in arranged marriages, in arranged marriages, they know more about people's families than the unarranged marriage. Isn't that something? Right? People in arranged marriages actually know more about relationships than people who are not in arranged marriages. Getting ready to you see this in movies and stuff all the time, but they put it in movies because it's part of how people operate it. How you doing, Glory? Right? Literally, you will see this stuff in movies, right? Somebody coming together. This happens in your lives all the time. You with somebody, you with them for years. Your family knows you're going out with somebody, but you never meet them. Finally, you guys decide that you're going to get married, right? Married. And so then you go and you show up and you're like, okay, dad, okay, mom, I want you to respect this person. I want you to treat them well. Don't come in here with an attitude, this and that or whatever. I want you to love them. I want you to look, I love this person. I need you to love them. I love this person. I need you to respect me. I need you to respect me as your child and the decision I made. And it's like, so you want me to love somebody that I've never met. How you doing, Prince? That's what you're saying. You're giving me you're trying to get me to fall into the expectation that even though I don't know this person, because I have love for you, who I licensed your humanity and taught you what it is to be you, you want me to love somebody who I don't know. I'm just meeting this person, but you're driven by expectation. Your expectation is unrealistic. You're driving illegally. You don't have a license. There's no license for that person to have a proper expectation. You haven't told me one thing. And by the way, if you're hiding certain things from me, you're probably hiding certain things from me as a parent. You're probably hiding these things because you know if you come before me with certain things, you know that I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, and you know I don't like those things for a reason. And rather than say, hey, I need to make sure this person is licensed to come before my parents, you just and therefore really licensed for me because my parents raised me so they know what's great for me. You say, no, you know what, I just want you to go forego the realistic expectation. I want you to just have this false expectation in the movies. When you go to watch the movies, they call it suspension of disbelief. You know that movie ain't real. You know that that car can't jump in there. You know the Fast and Furious movies. You know that that car doesn't operate like that. You know a car can't go out in space. You know people who drive cars ain't going out into space. You know that, right? But you have to suspend disbelief to make it through the movie, right? You know this. You know that a bullet doesn't curve in the air. You know that somebody can't stop a bullet with their hands, right? You know that's not happening. And even if you're going to a place, well, if you're spiritually inclined, you can pick up a mountain. Okay, sure. How many people are so spiritually inclined that you've seen them out here picking up mountains, right? So you have to suspend disbelief. You said, yeah, and then they show you who they are, right? And said the marriages are arranged because of the status of a certain family. I mean, at times there's poor families that get arranged marriages too, but they're based on, you know, the status, of course. Thank you, Sister Betty. Right. But we're talking about being licensed to drive. What drives your expectation? Belief is the enemy of knowing. I would say that you should know what you believe. I get that though. A lot of people believe and don't know what they're talking about. But the word know means to be intimate with. Be intimate. You say you believe in this. Like, look, I believe you know, my savar is, you know, what people would call, you know, well, my savar, you know, savar hakodash, you know, is what people would call the Bible, but you know, but people don't comprehend what the Bible says. So I say know it, right? Knowledge is power. Okay, well, what are you intimate with? You say knowledge is power. Okay, are you intimate with knowledge? If I were to say Dr. Amos Wilson, you know, before you start talking about Afrocentric ideas and stuff like that, have you read a book by Dr. Amos Wilson? You know, before you start talking about the way that white people see you, have you checked out Dr. Francis Cress Welsing? Before you start getting into your canon of Afrocentricity, which I don't mind, have you checked out Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and not just only the one book that everybody talks about, you know, which is the Miseducation of the American Negro? Before you start talking about flags, you know, and the Moroccan flag even, which is important to know and value, do you know about the red, the black, and the green? Before you start talking about a national anthem or the black anthem, do you know Marcus Garvey wrote the black anthem? Do you know? You see what I'm saying? Like knowledge is power. We're talking about these things, but we're not necessarily getting into power. And knowledgeable is knowing what to do with them, is actually doing what's the power to come. Well, knowledge, yeah, but knowledge is being so intimate with something you produce fruit. Then wisdom is wise domination, right? Wise domination or a domain that something wise can go inside of. We just did a 12 Pillars of Wisdom series. It's on the YouTube channels, on the podcast. If you want to catch up on those, right? It's on Facebook a lot as well. But you know, if you're talking about wisdom, we talk about 12 pillars. First things first in wisdom or domain, you have to make sure that you have something that's systematic and systemically put in place. Second thing after that, you have to do, oh goodness, I don't know if I remember on. Second thing is then knowledge, intimacy. Third thing is being a game changer. Fourth thing is redemption, which means to be reconsidered. Fifth thing, vision, purpose, and value. Sixth thing, etymology. Sixth thing, or seventh thing, eschatology. Eighth thing, cultural appropriation. What's culturally appropriate as far as being wise? Seventh thing, accepting humiliation. Can you be humble, and can you start where you are? Can you humble yourself even around other people so that you can even catch up to wisdom and learn and grow, right? Ninth thing I'm sorry, 10th thing talking about is marriage, right? Do you even know what marriage is? And marriage are huge pieces of society, right? I'm not talking about going to the state and all this stuff. You can write your own marriage contract. What does your culture say about marriage? Right. The 11th thing, law protects you. You know, law protects rights. And then the 12th thing, love is an action so powerful that it brings about description. It's a description so powerful it brings about manifestation. Do your actions speak so well of you that others will describe you as a certain thing culturally, and then when they describe you, their descriptions lead to things that manifest? Christianity is Christianity is. I have no problem with that, but that goes back to expectations. Do people know what the Bible talks about? When people talk about even like the Council of Nicaea, do you comprehend how the Bible was written before the Council of Nicaea? Thank you, 369 Bear. Right? Yeah, worship the Creator, not the creation. Yeah, we have no problem. We're on the same page with that. Yeah, I don't even do God. I do Elohim because God is a Germanic deity. God is a pagan mindset. We don't even know when we say Godspeed, Guten Tag, right? Good day. All things work together for his good. Those are all talking about a Germanic deity or Germanic deities. We don't even know that. We just say God. People say the firmament. There is no firmament. Firmament is a Greek god. You're getting into a whole different religion or version of a religion. Religion literally means a legion of people that repetitively do the same thing. What are your expectations based off of? See what I'm saying? We're talking a lot of stuff, but we're not talking about expectations. The expectation drives you. You said the Trinity was in, you see, that's what I'm saying, the expectation. So somebody says the Trinity was invented, blah, 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 blah. But you know that you can't say Achabach, Alachem, Yahava, Yashvai, et cetera, et cetera. And Yashvai, or some people say Yeshua, Yahavashai, all that, we can get into that later, right? You can't speak on those things and say that they just appeared after the Council of Nicaea when those things existed thousands of years before. All those names, all of that title I just mentioned, love I just mentioned, when it says Yahava Achaba, you would translate that to God as love because you're speaking somebody else's language. But even the word love in Anglo or Anglo-ish, ancient English, it literally means that what? Love means to your action. It means that you are alive, right? So love means love, live, and even life. Right? I have come that you might have life and have it more or abundantly. Life it means three things: life, live, and love, because the letter V and the letter F are interchangeable, and the letter I and the letter O are interchangeable. See, but we're dealing with expectations. People don't have the proper expectation. Okay, not sure if I'm saying, is it Marquetta or Marquietta? And thank you for being on. I appreciate it. Said all religion leads to Satan. Well, then that means no, because religion just literally means it's a legion, right? Which is just a lizard being, Draco serpent. No, like we're putting other people's culture in it. I mean, if that's what you believe, you have a right to believe what you want to believe, right? I'm just saying, if you're going to take it to my culture and to what our people believe and what we actually have kept, and you can go back to where my people are from and look at scrolls and things. See, we think that people like myself don't exist anymore, and we think that there's no attachment back to our culture. The attachment is always back to the culture. You said love is sweet when you're with the right person. Well, love is an action. Love should be there even when times aren't sweet. Even if you don't like a person, you should love a person. It's a different expectation, right? And our problem is that we're driven by expectations. However, how realistic are our expectations? How you doing, Melinda? Thanks for being on with us, and thanks for being part of the community, right? Well, how realistic is your expectation? If your expectation is not realistic, then it can't be valued. And that's why a lot of people, watch this. Have you ever thought about how much cognitive dissonance has to exist for hundreds of millions, if not billion plus people, right? I don't know how many people are Christians nowadays or whatever they say the exact numbers are, right? But how many people go someplace and literally are going someplace and not even learning the truth or don't even have the proper expectation? How many people go to a church and don't even know that the word church means circus? Amen, Prince. Right? How many people go to church and don't even know that the word church means circus? And then try to figure out why is there so much amusement here? Don't even know the word amusement. Amusement park, amusement, it just literally means somebody's trying to get you not to think. The word muse means to think. Is the opposite of amusement. You go to an amusement park so you don't have to think. A lot of people go to church or a circus for amusement. Oh, we talked about that before, Mr. Energy. I'm with you. The Bible explains that there were people long before Adam. Adam is where we come from, but there's a mix of other people, which is why some people carry DNA they can't explain where it comes from, right? So I have no problem with that, but it's the expectation. You're driven by expectation. Once again, the word drive means somebody has to employ you to take them from one place to the other. If you're going to employ expectations, you better make sure that you go through the right hiring process. How did you go about hiring the expectations that you're going to allow to drive your life? You said, I'm a spirit living in the physical culture and all that is cool, but I just spread truth and live, or truth and love, possibly. I mean, all right, sure. Spirit living in the physical, yeah. You said culture and all that is cool, but you just spread it. Yeah, I mean, you spread love, so you spread action. So far, we don't have it seems like we're saying the same thing. Now, when people start saying, well, I'm going to do this with your culture, or I'm going to change what something means, or if we believe in something like universal law, there are certain things spiritually universal that are universal. Yeah, a lot of people might not know church means circus, but they're going to go to church this Sunday and they're going to sit in one and then try to figure out what's going on. You meant live? Okay, spread the truth and live. Okay, no problem. So I have no problem with that. What I have a problem is, once again, what is your expectation? Is your expectation based off of truth? That's the focus for today, right? Because somebody can go, like, watch this. Somebody will say, well, it doesn't matter what you call God. God can be whatever you want. That's a poor expectation. The reason why I say that is because God is not the same as Elohim. It's like when somebody says, I'm talking about a Kemetic God, or what they call Egyptian gods. Egyptians, which are not even the word that they call themselves, right? Kemetic people, they don't worship gods. Gods are a different form of spirituality. People try to say, oh, no, you're just mentioning. No, no, no. Words are important. They have value, and everybody's culture has certain things that cannot be translated. You can't talk about a Kemetic nature and expect the same thing from a Kemetic nature that you do a Greek god. Now, did the Greek people try to make their gods and copy off of the nature? Sure. But that's why there's a lot of stuff that doesn't translate very well, does it? If we do a lot of study, there's a lot of stuff that go. And by the way, when I say Greek, people are automatically going into a mindset of white people. The original Greek people were not what we considered by the social construct to be white. So even in that, we have to be careful about the expectation. You said, how can someone be loved and to be loved back? Well, there's an expectation. A lot of people aren't worried about love. They're worried about what they like. But eventually likes wear off and you're going to need some love. A lot of people get married and they see a whole bunch of stuff that's wrong with the person that they're marrying, right? A lot of people see something wrong with the person they're about to lay down and have sex with or whatever, but they're like, hey, whatever, it's about sex. You catch feelings. You go to certain things. The person's nice enough. You've been with them for years. They really didn't want to get married, but you kind of got them to finally agree, stuff like that. And you try to make it work. There has to be an expectation in the beginning. If I give, I expect something in return. And people try to make you feel bad about that. But even our canon says, give and it shall be given unto thee. And what? Great measure, or Elohim's measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And it says, shall men give into your bosom. So people are supposed to give something back to you when you give out. For with the same measure that you meet, when you measure something out, then that's what's going to cause to be given back to you. That's the principle. That's universal. And when I say universal, remember the word universe, it means uni, a verse, spoken sentence, a single spoken sentence. The one who spoke the universe into existence said that there's a law that goes past the universe spoken to existence, that goes into the kingdom that is eternal. Right? If I give, it should be given. And so people aren't looking for expectation. People don't have expectation from the beginning. You get into the relationship, then somebody starts doing wrong, and then you start talking about these expectations. But you let somebody be a jerk for 7 years before they even married you, right? You let somebody, you were on, off, on, off, on, off with somebody and said, well, we made it through. Those are just struggles and stuff, but we made it through. No, you didn't make it through. You were broken, right? You were dating somebody and you had a great date game, but you didn't have a great marital game. You had some children together, and so, hey, I can't just have you have a child out here, but you shouldn't lay down with that person anyways, because you should have had an expectation that was higher than that. We have bad expectation. That's part of the issue. To the enemy of man, main goal is transhumanism, to take our body as a host. Okay. Alan says, oh, hey, how you doing, Shalom? Yeah, words are extremely important. Etymology is extremely important. He said, I want people to realize that we are one. Everything is energy that comes from us, from source, space, and darkness. I mean, that's what everybody, once again, I feel like I get what you're saying, and I get you're saying that we should try to become one, right? However, energy can, in fact, be destroyed. Or it can be rerouted to a place where we cannot connect back to it. Once again, not just going into the esoteric only, we should take the spiritual and all this stuff, we should take it and not make it so mystical that it's never practical. Practically speaking, for example, we talked about this before. You said, I love church. How do I get the beautiful word of God? When two or more gather here. Okay. Amen. Um, right. But we have to have a better expectation. Watch this. Practically speaking, let's make this practical. Let's take the spiritual, make it practical. Practically speaking, may I ask a question? Some of you who've been on with this going to get this because you've been on with this, but may I ask you a question? Is there a such thing as neutrons? Protons, electrons, and neutrons. Do you believe that there's a such thing as neutrons? When we talk about energy, let's just, basic conversation. How you doing, 1-1? Thanks for being part of the community. Is there a such thing as a neutron? Right. Okay. The answer is no. There's no such thing as a neutron. Did you know that? Did you know that a neutron is purely and completely theoretical and hypothetical? If you look for a neutron under a microscope, no, I didn't say is there such thing as an atom. See, the expectation. Well, I get what you're trying to say. There's really no such thing as anything because everything's energy. But if energy manifests into things, then we can say that something is real. Like this chair is real. It's at a different frequency than I am. But if the chair didn't have real energy behind it, I couldn't sit in the chair. But I get what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? Right. But I get what you're saying. So whether you want to call it energy, spirit, or spiritual manifestation, if you want to call it melanin, if you want to do whatever, right, whatever we're talking about. But what I'm saying is let's not make it so mystical. We can't have a practical conversation. You're on a high level of what you're talking about, even a high level of frequency. And I appreciate it, right? What I'm saying is let's make this practical, right? So, in all the things that we're talking about, once again, are neutrons, see, I don't even mean in that regard. Hear what I'm saying? Are neutrons actually real? As far as even energy concerned and how man names things, is a neutron real? No, that's not true. Somebody told you that without a neutron, an atom wouldn't exist, and they lied to you about what an atom was and a neutron was. Do you know that they were studying atoms before they even thought about the need to create a neutron? Did you know that? They had to create a neutron in their mind, but there's no such thing as a neutron. When they were splitting atoms, making the atomic bomb, right, leading up to making the atomic bomb, they did not have neutrons yet. There was no such thing as neutrons. I'm gonna talk about what drives your expectations. See, somebody put something in there. Yes, a cell is real. You can see a cell under a microscope. Is my point. I'm talking about as far as your vision. We're trying to make it practical, right? A cell is real, right? A nucleus is real, right? A proton is real, an electron is real, but you cannot see a neutron. A neutron is a theory. Theories can be based off of law, which makes it lawful to have theories. Theories are just things that, hey, we are trying to get from A to C. We can't figure out B in the middle. This is the theory of B to help us to get from A to C. Eventually, we'll be able to get rid of that when we find out more information. That's why gravity, even though you use the term gravity, the theory of gravity is not even, the theory of gravity was disproven by the theory of relativity, and the theory of relativity has been disproven. They were both theories. They sound nice, but gravity is not just as simple as what holds you to the ground. The theory of gravity is supposed to talk about everything was holding everything in place. That's why they have a new theory for what holds everything in place in space, not necessarily gravity, but now we talk about dark matter, right? But hear what I'm saying? Well, you can say it can't be expressed by language. I'm trying to tell you it doesn't exist. I'm telling you that somebody made it up. Now, this is how they came up with the theory. And once again, we can agree to disagree. It's fine. This is a safe space, right? So if you have a different belief system, that's fine. I'm just telling you based off of the same books that you're reading to get you to the place where you're talking about there's energy and this and that. I need you to comprehend how energy actually works because they're messing with you as far as what you think energy is because they had to make up a theory. They had to tell you something was an actual thing that they have never found, right? So so a neutron. So this is what happened. You had protons, you had electrons. They were splitting them, and this is what actually happened. They were splitting the protons and electrons. You said, so believing in neutrons? I said, well, this is, if you would allow me to do so. If you'd like to listen, you can go ahead and just listen. If not, feel free to go ahead and speak or whatever, but I'm going to actually explain what I'm talking about. So just hold off. Maybe you'll hear the explanation and why it's important, because we're talking about driving your expectations. If you have an expectation based off of something that's not even real, are your expectations realistic? All right. So let's go back to driving expectations. When you're dealing with a neutron, the reason why they came up with neutrons, it was five young boys, Italian boys, I believe. Um, they were blowing up, not the boys, but all these different countries were blowing up protons and neutrons. I'm sorry, protons and electrons. They were blowing up protons and electrons. And they had this belief that they had this theory that they had been teaching to everybody. The same theory that a lot of people were busy saying, right? The same theory that a lot of people were busy talking about, right? The same theory that a lot of people were busy talking about, which was, hey, if you explode, if the proton, if the electron explodes, then the energy will not go away. The energy does not disappear. The energy will just go into another form, or yeah, but we'll be able to track and trace the energy in it, because they had taught energy does not go anywhere. Energy cannot die off. That's what you were taught, right? You said those things only exist when you blow it up. Okay, all right. So once again, if your whole thing is just, that's fine. For those who want to hear the rest, feel free to listen. So right? So when they blew up the proton and they blew up the electron, and which, by the way, then that means that you would have to blow up the neutron, right? But nevertheless, when they didn't know about neutrons, and they didn't even believe in neutrons. They were blowing up protons and electrons. They said that the energy wasn't supposed to go anywhere. It wasn't supposed to dissipate. However, when they blew them up, funny thing happened, is that they would discover that the energy disappeared, and they couldn't track or trace where the energy went to. Now we could say that that's just maybe modern, modern, or where what they call modern technology and the limits of it. Okay, right. But protons and electrons, they were teaching people this theory. This theory said that energy cannot disappear. Come to find out, energy can disappear. So they had an issue, right? They had an issue. Okay, that's fine. They still can't measure it correctly. So we're still dealing with the same thing. All right. To where they have a theory that's not working. That's my point. And so we're dealing with a theory that still isn't working out. It's still a theory because they can't prove it to be fact. Right. And so what's going on now is they say, okay, how do we explain this? We need to explain this to people because we told them energy can't disappear. So what happens? We have to create a theory. The fact is that this energy is disappearing. But we told everybody the theory, we taught it as fact. And still to this day, they teach it as fact in some places. But they taught it as fact for so long. They said, we got to come up with a new theory that makes us our old theory okay, or is to say, hey, look, we got something new. We can't just be out here with anything, right? So they hid from everybody that energy is disappearing. You hear what I'm saying? Right? Right? So they said it's disappearing. We can't measure it. We could measure it before. We blew it up. We saw the energy for a little bit, and then the energy disappeared, and it didn't even show back up in the form of protons and electrons again. We have no proof. We're totally out here theoretical. Okay, so now that they're like, we have no proof. We can't prove that this theory is correct. So now this group of everybody's looking for a new theory, right? And here come these group of men, these young men, these young Italian brothers, and they say, okay, we have a theory. Let's call it a neutron, right? There has to be neutral energy. Matter of fact, I'm sorry, I'm bringing the young Italian brothers in too soon. They said basically, well, we'll call it a neutron. And so these young Italian brothers start studying that. Excuse me, right? You said without this theory, my friend, we would be on these phones? Yeah, because we're on the phones without neutrons. They don't use neutrons in the equation to make phones. We use other things like, precious stones and things like that as well, that go way past, back in the ancient times, and how they had electricity and things like that, and used and moved things, and even had what do you call it, melanin crystals and things like that. We've known about how crystals and things work on phones. They use melanin in the device more so than they do neutrons. So yeah, we would have these. We had these things. Heck, they had telegrams and things like that without having neutrons. So yeah, we would have these. But nevertheless, they had this theory, right? They had this theory, and this theory that was there to say, okay, so in this theory, we'll say that energy just goes to a neutral place. We don't know where the neutral place is. We don't know what the neutral thing does, but it has to be there, and it has to be there for the proton and electron pairing, that both of them disappear, but they go to a neutral place, which is why now they start talking about protons, neutrons, and electrons to further make sure that we comprehend that this is a theory. Then this group of 5 boys or whatever, they come up with this thing called neutrinos, which are even more theoretical. Right? Do your research. These things called neutrinos, which are more theoretical. They cannot prove that neutrinos exist. What they said was neutrinos exist, but they're just an energy source, and all neutrons come from neutrinos. Well, I thought neutrons came from protons and electrons. No, our theory is now that there's neutrons. They don't necessarily come from protons and electrons, but they're there to capture the energy of protons and electrons. But they actually come from this thing called neutrinos, and they actually have a huge pool set up in Japan. You can research it. Once again, huge pool, right? That they make sure the water is completely pure in, and they do something where supposedly they shoot electronic signal around the world, supposedly, and it comes through or whatever, and then they shoot the signal through, and it's supposed to be shooting, create neutrons that go through this water, and then they try to study that. They said the neutrons are basically have to have, or neutrinos rather, have to have mass, because neutrons have to have mass. The problem is, though, is that the neutrinos, they said, move faster than the speed of light, but then they had a problem with that because they kept seeing the neutrinos were changing form. If the neutrinos change form, they said if something goes at the speed of light, then it can't move. It has to stay still. You see what I'm saying? So all these things are happening, and they're based off of what? Theories. And you can argue it to the cows come home. That's fine. What I'm telling you is based off of the science that you're presenting and saying, and we're saying that we should go off of, right? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's the same theory that keeps being debunked over and over again. The theory is that there's a neutron. The theory is that energy doesn't exist. And they're saying that science continues to advance. I'm telling you, science still can't prove what they said, which is that energy doesn't go anywhere. That's the issue. And by the way, science, once again, it's your expectation. All that being said, it is your expectation. If your expectation is based off of somebody else's culture, you think we act like all science is equal. We act like just because somebody calls it science, that's what everybody uses. You know, we act like science is what everybody uses, or the same science, like the same measurements or whatever. Everybody's not using the same science, but people try to pick and choose the science because they have an expectation. So they'll pick and choose whatever it takes. Thanks for being part of the community, Taylor Made. They'll try to pick whatever it takes to be able to get them to where they want to be. Right? I mean, yeah, people theoretically put something together on a periodic table, and the periodic table doesn't necessarily make 100% sense either. Even scientists will tell you that, but they use it because, okay, that's all we have right now from point to get from A to C. We'll use it as point B, which is why the periodic table keeps changing. But even stuff on a periodic table, some of it is synthetic, which means that it's not real either. It's not the way that they would even say the universe was made, even though, once again, the word universe they use, it means a single spoken sentence, universe. So how do you have a conversation about the universe without talking about the one who would have created the energy in the first place? Why not go by what he says? Science is just culture. The reason why you're getting stuck with the vaccine is because in the culture of Europe, the people who made scientific discovery or medical discovery, the fathers of medicine and all this stuff, even though the original father of medicine is 4,000 years before Christ, right? Or so we say, what, 3,000, 4,000 years? Imhotep, people like, actually, Imhotep, is he the father of medicine? He was some people call him the father of medicine. I guess so. So, right? But, nowadays, these fathers of medicine, well, in Europe, you take a shot because in Europe, if something this is a religious experience. If something attacks your body, you attack it. If cancer attacks your body, you attack the whole body, and you attack the cancer, even if you're killing the body off to kill the cancer. If you got something and you need to be vaccinated, you stab your body to make sure that you attack what's in you. You know, that comes from back in the days when people believed that elves were actually really small creatures that used to be inside your veins. So you go and intravenously kill off the elves. You're having a religious conversation. Somebody just slaps the label science on it, and we go, oh, okay, it must be scientific. Is it scientific just because somebody says it's science? Like, there's people on here disagreeing with me saying that, hey, just because you're saying a couple things that are factual doesn't mean you have the right context. Well, if you believe that, then why won't you say that against your own position? You know, it's religious. You know, yeah, my wife says Western science is nonsensical. It's so nonsensical, excuse me. You know, like that stuff doesn't make sense. There's a lot of stuff we're doing that doesn't make sense. Doctors don't give medicine. Doctors practice medicine. Now, I think you should keep on practicing anything, but I'm saying to act like a doctor's here to heal, they're not even supposed to tell you that they can cure or heal anything. They say that they can what? They say that they can what? They can practice on you. Think about this. See, in natural medicine, what I give to you, I should be able to give to a 2-year-old. Right? It doesn't make sense if I can't give it to a 2-year-old, but I give it to you. But in Western medicine, hey, you know, we can't give it to the 2-year-old. Why? Because it would kill the 2-year-old. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, before somebody tells us, oh, somebody's going to take us to some weird place. Can you give a 2-year-old poison? Yeah, but you can't give an adult poison either. You shouldn't. Right? But if you can't eat it, you shouldn't be taking it. Like, if it's something that harms your body, why would you eat it? If it's something that's not natural, why would you have it? It's not your nature. Yeah, his ways are not our ways, nor his thoughts are our thoughts. Explains the unexplainable. That would be enough for some, but you know, and that's fine. That's why we say, you know, those who have ears to hear. It comes to a place to where, look, if you want to culturally have a conversation or at least respect somebody else's culture, it's fine. I feel like I respect the other person's culture to speak on their culture from the terms that they use. Right. But somebody else will be like, oh, you know, well, you don't do this, you don't do that. Yeah, even pharmacy or pharmakia, which is actually more connected to the word church than ecclesia, right? But it's sorcery, control, circus, witchcraft. They're telling you what the stuff is while doing it. They can treat you. You said in the beginning, but first of all, the word the doesn't even exist. That's somebody else's context. When you say in the beginning, if you're going to attack it correctly. What you need to comprehend is this bada shit. Do you know what bada shit means? Bada shit is actually 6 characters. So that would go bet, aleph, um, resh, shin, yao, tev. Talking about the son who comes out the right family, who's one with the source, one with the father. The word father and it doesn't even mean male or female, but nevertheless, that's how people go because you're going off of a Greco-Roman mentality or a very what is it? The Greeks and Romans like Latin words, which is why people will say a scientific term for a plant. If you know, I was teaching this to my son. My wife is a herbalist, right? But she was telling my son about plants and things, and you know, she was like, you know, there's a scientific word or whatever, and so we just kind of laughed because I was like, yeah, when you hear them say scientific word, son, they're saying white word. They're saying this is how white people say it. You know, that's kind of what's happened to the term, right? That's what's happened over time. It's gone to now. Obviously, Romans and Greeks weren't necessarily white by the social construct, but people who now use it, it's kind of become this is what white people say, right? But when you're talking about in beginning, about a shit, the son who comes out the right family is the source. The father, it was one with the father, and therefore becoming our head by being destroyed and being led by the Holy Spirit to the top, or what you would call today the cross, the place of the crucifixion. And I know there's 6 types of crucifixion, but there was a particular type of crucifixion at that time. So when you're going to say in the beginning, you know, the story construct, you have to first recognize what Barashit means and what culture you're coming from. The word the wouldn't even exist, and in beginning would mean something completely different to us. Matter of fact, there is no book of Genesis that's dealing with somebody who deals with genealogies. Genealogies are something that's cultural, right? And that's their way of explaining DNA, memory, and things like that. We're talking about how we, in beginning for us, is talking about the same person that'll be mentioned in Yohanan, you know, Aleph Aleph or John 1:1. The same story because it's the same culture. It's a different tribe. It's a different way of thought. It's a different language. It's not the same thing. But your expectations are driven by something else, and you're telling me what my expectations should be based off of, not recognizing that my expectations are coming from a totally different place. Both human beings, both should respect one another. Totally different place. Scientists tell you you're not just smart enough to understand science. um, oh yeah, you're not. You're just not smart enough to understand. Yeah. And if you say something about it, you start pointing out the inconsistencies, and people say you just don't understand, you just don't comprehend, you just don't know, it's like, no, don't make the mistake. Just because I'm not in a Eurocentric frame of thought doesn't mean that I wasn't raised in a Eurocentric frame of thought. Like I spent more of my life in Eurocentricity than I have in Afrocentricity. I spent more of my life in a system that says that you should have classes based off of skin color than a system that says that, hey, you can be whatever color you want and we should show love to everybody. However, I should be okay with my skin color and I should see color. Right? I think people make the mistake of saying that if we say something different. You said, but we believe it to mean Genesis. No, I don't believe it to mean Genesis. I don't believe Badashir to mean Genesis. You said health is from high vibrational food, healing is within. Sure. Uh-oh, man-made. I'm sorry, somebody says something about man-made medicine and made me scroll up. You said what's there, you didn't attack it? I don't even. You're saying that medicine, I'm talking about the way that people came across it. That's how the vaccine came to be. It came from that culture. So did I ever go to church or did I say the Bible on my own? Who taught me? So I actually was born and raised in a household where my father was a Baptist. My mother was a Jehovah's Witness. My father worked 2.5 jobs and really didn't have time to even consider what people would call religion. And so he didn't really go to church, but he made sure we went to the Kingdom Hall with my mom. My mom, from the age of 4, started teaching me and having me go door to door with people. And then at 6 years old, I started preaching. At about age 13 or 14, I had issues with what I was being taught. I started asking questions. The answer to my questions were kind of shut up and don't ask questions anymore. And I said, bet. I stopped going. My mom gave me her blessing and said she believed in me enough to teach, that she taught me enough. I became agnostic. I studied many different things, traveled around the world while being able to do so because I was in the United States military. And I've had many teachers and people that I've been under since. You said I'm breaking apart the flaws of all language. Hmm. Does my wife still come on the Bible study in the evening? She comes on every last Sunday of each month. She doesn't necessarily want to be on all the time. I mean, if that's what you want to call it, zeitgeist is storytelling. I'm not explaining storytelling. You were explaining storytelling when you said that, hey, it was a story construct. I don't believe it to be a story construct. I don't believe it to be his story. I'm looking for the story. A story doesn't mean that it's false, right? There is a story. There's a truth. So, but that's fine. Like I said, at a certain point, just, you can feel free to believe whatever you want to believe. That's fine. I'm here to tell you from a different perspective. So, yeah, science is made confusing on purpose. I was told much at the university. Yeah. And like, again, I think people make this mistake. My wife is a herbalist and stuff. She teaches on some of these things. And people will be like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, my wife went to school for biology. You don't think that she did chemistry? A matter of fact, a lot of people don't even know chemistry is chemistry. It's where the word comes from. But how many people learned about chemet when learning about chemistry? You're speaking on something that's not even the original. That's why we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. Principalities are an origin. How are you going to tell me about something you don't know the original? You don't know where it originated from. You don't know the origin. Thank you, Melinda. People don't know the origin. No, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 are different stories. They're different. They're different stories in a sense. We talked about this before. We talked about this on our early Rising Bible Studies session a while ago. But and we talked about it before on YouTube before they took down the old YouTube channel. We had to start a new one. Nevertheless, like you're talking about a group of people. See, people don't even comprehend when they're reading what they call the Bible, the Biblios, etc., the set of books. They don't even recognize when they're reading that scroll what's going on. You had two different groups of beliefs even before Moses. We keep thinking like Moses, the beginning of this, and we have a weird timeline. Before Moses, people believed in what we're talking about. In China, they believed in Changdi before they started talking about Buddha and other Eastern philosophy and yin and yang and stuff, right? Like you can actually look up this stuff for yourself and see historically that the Chinese were talking about Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, etc., right? Like we do this weird thing where we just we cap, we should have no cap, right? But we cap. we put a cap on it and we say, okay, that's all that it comes from, right? But all you got to do is look at where was I going? I'm sorry. What was it? Yeah. So all you have to do is look at, like, with the creation piece, there were, we would call them now, I don't even know if this is what they call themselves, but we call them stuff like Elohimites and Yahavites. And you had the Elohimites who believed that, like, basically we need to focus on all 6 periods of time. Yom is a period of time. A day is a period of time. A day does not necessarily mean 24 hours. Matter of fact, it used to be 12 hours in the day. People don't know, right? But nevertheless, right? And it went back and forth between different cultures. Nevertheless, they believed in the 6 yams, and on the 7th yam was the period of time that the Most High rested inside of. We call that Shabbat today when we do our 7 days, even though we do that wrong too, because the Israelite calendar doesn't match up. It can be 353 days all the way up to 385 days a year, right? But we're just doing our best because we're in the land of our captivity. Other people are over us, so we just go by what they tell us. Also, though, when you're talking about the land of your captivity, I'm sorry, when you're talking about that, so you had the Elohimites to focus on that story, but then you had Adam, and so you had Yahavites, we call them Yahavites now, who believed in let's focus on Adam. And Moses says, why are we fighting each other on that? Do we believe that both of them are true? Everybody's like, yeah. So he says, well, then we'll just write out what we know to be the beginning, and we'll write it out together. So it's 2 stories in a sense, right? But it's basically the same objective, is to make sure that you comprehend how everything happened, and then what happened in the Garden of Eden, specifically with Adam, and then out of him, Adam, then out of him, Havavah, who we call Eve, and to be able to put the 2 together, right? That's basically what happened in that story. All right, thank you, Shamel. So we are both explaining the story, which means we are defining language. Well, I'm not defining language. Language was fine the way it is, right? If we're talking about etymology, and breaking it down, language was fine the way it was. Somebody started defining it and breaking it down, and then we've redefined it so many times. It's like a book, right? If you get another edition of a book, what allows you to write a book? Why are there so many versions of the Bible? Not because people believe different. You know why there's many versions of the Bible that cause people to believe different? Because you can't write you can't publish a new version of any book without changing at least 10% of the words. If you don't change at least 10% of the words, then you legally can't write another book, can you? So we think that there's a KJV and an NKJV and an NIV and an ESV and an NESV and an Amplified and all these different things. We think that's because that, like, somebody was led by some energy or spirit, And the reality is that no, they just need to make sure they can get paid. You know what I'm saying? So we're speaking on etymology, sure, but we're studying etymology. Remember, it's etymos, not eteos. Eteos means we're studying what it truly means. Etymos means we're studying what it came out of, and we got to study what it came out of. We have to know that. You said you want to do retreats for children. I want to teach about Yashrai. Others say just love. I'm confused of what to do. Talk about universal law. I'm confused of my expectations. Well, once again, universal law, so expectations, right? And thank you, Bounty. Universal, I'm sorry, what? Well, and then there is removing information. Well, yeah, there's some of that too. That's why if you look at the slave Bible, what is it? In a regular Bible, it has over 1,000, and so I forget, 1,000 something chapters in it. And a slave Bible, it only has 230 something chapters. You can tell when somebody removes stuff. And then let's not even get into Apocrypha, right? And Yashar or Jasher and all these different things, right? So we don't even know. Well, first of all, we don't even know who should be the actually author of it, who's the authority of it. So when we get back to this term universe, universal, universe literally means uni a verse, single spoken sentence. It's like when people talk about psychology. People want to talk about psychology, but you don't want to talk about what psychology is. Even in the Greek, psychology is the study of the soul. Psyche, which is spelled the same way, Psyche. You say psyche. because you don't know how to pronounce Greek. But sake, and I don't necessarily know how to pronounce it that well. I just know certain terms, right? But sake, you say psyche. Psyche means soul. It means soul. It means the seat of the emotions. It means where your spirit and your body merge and meet. Matter of fact, some people define it as where your pineal gland is, which is why they study the pine cone, because they believe that that's where the melanin came out of, and the melanin formed there because your physical man and your spiritual man were coming together. They took that part from Kemet, but they perverted it a little bit, and so you don't even know. But when you talk about psychology, you can't talk about psychology without talking about the soul. When you go to see your psychologist, you're going to somebody who's trained to study the soul, hopefully. A lot of them don't even believe in the soul. So how are they going to deal in psychology, but they won't talk about your soul? No, in Genesis 1, Elohim just means is a title. So whenever you see God in the Bible, because you're dealing with Germanic deities and Germanic religion that's coming to the Bible, whenever you see God in the Bible, it's talking about Elohim. So it's talking about, so whenever you, so, and then remember, we just talked about the Elohimites in chapter 1, basically, really it's chapter 1 through chapter 2, verse 3. And then at chapter 2, verse 4, you start seeing Lord God. Whenever you see God in the Bible, it's Elohim. Whenever you see Lord God, it's Yahweh Elohim. So you have the story of the Elohimites. So they're saying Elohim, 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 Elohim. You see then Lord God, which is Yahweh, Yahweh Elohim. So they're saying Yahweh, 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 same person. Right. And by the way, there's neither male nor female in heaven. See how expectations can change things? There's neither male nor female in heaven. The Most High has taught us this. There's no male nor female in heaven. So when we say father, right, in the Bible, it's the same father who can give you the zarach, which is the seed, right, that will permeate you and impregnate you, that you can manifest something. It also says that he is the same person who you can suckle from his bosom, right? You're dealing with the Greco-Roman mentality that says that woman ain't nothing. Right. And so we try to put some feminist stuff against the Bible because we're like, oh, see, they think women ain't nothing. No, that culture thinks women ain't nothing. Your expectations are being driven by something that's not ours. You said because of a different story, a man named everything. No, it's not a different story. It's the same story. Right. You're coming from somebody else's perspective. Somebody else changed the name. Well, I guess you could say that somebody changed the story. So it changes the name, changes the authority, changes the word. So it changes the story. But just go back to the original. We know the origin. We know where it comes from. We know what it said. Why are we trying to argue with somebody else? It's like when people do that weird Lilith thing. Lilith is only mentioned in your Bible one time, and she's supposed to be somebody that you stay away from. That spirit of Lilith is something that causes all type of chaos and destruction. But people have somehow tried to marry Lilith into Eve. Eve's not even, and people say, yeah, Lilith came before Eve, and Eve's not her name. Yeah, Lilith isn't her name either. I'm sorry, Chavavah, or Havach, or something you can see if somebody doesn't know how to say Havach real quick, and it just sounds like Havach, and they can't say Havach or Chavach, right? Eva, Eve. They just took it. They put it in another language. But we don't know how language works. We don't know etymology. We don't know eschatology, the study of those things that will last, right? But universal law is something that has to be given by the one who spoke a verse or spoke the universe into existence. That's what universe means. You said it's not the same story way they created man in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. So once again, yeah, it's not, because it's two different things. Man was created. Adam. So when Adam and Eve had their children and Cain kills Abel and Cain goes and marries somebody, there were other human beings already here. Yes, we've already talked about that. I have no problem with that. We teach that. Right? But that's not what we're talking about necessarily. We take it to these other places because we're trying to argue other people's expectations. That's not my expectation. Wally almost pronounced it. Oh, Eva. Yeah. But they were telling you, they were hipping you to something. You see in these movies, they give you random lines and stuff. We don't think about it. Like he says Eva in there quite a bit, right? Because he can't, right? And they write her name out. Why do they write Eva that way? Because Eva is close to what somebody say Chavach or Chavavach or Chavavach, which can sound like Chavavach. Eva. They're telling you this. They're telling you the story. You know. You said what evidence is there here? Well, I mean, as far as I'm about to say, if I saying it right, Yeah, paleontology, right? As far as paleontology, I believe there's a whole lot of evidence. As far as origins of things that go back 10,000 plus years and stuff, there's a lot of evidence. Matter of fact, people that believe in creationism or whatever, that the earth has to be only 6,000 years old. The Bible never said that 6 days was 6 24-hour periods of time. And it never said that Adam's age only starts, when he was shaped from the ground. It says that Adam started being aged when he sinned. So we don't know how long the stuff is, because once again, a day is a period of time. Had sin not entered and we not had to die to be separated from these, or to be killed off before we be eternally separated from the Most High and be able to put back on glorified bodies, we'd have no need to be sitting up here talking about hundreds of years, thousands of years, because it'd just be a period of time. We'd still be in Shabbat or Sabbath, or this period of rest. The only thing that took the Most High out of his rest was when Adam sinned. So once again, that's somebody else's structure and standing. You see how that happens? We're having our expectations driven by somebody else. You said time is a constant, so how can you measure that? Time was different then. Once again, in Hebrew, see, you're going off of somebody else's context. What's driving you is something different than what drives me, or the expectations that are driving me, or you have different expectations. So the expectations that drive me are based off of the fact that Yom, which is what you would use the word day for, does not have to mean 24 hours. It does not have to mean a year. It doesn't have to mean 2 years. It just means a period of time. So check this out, right? Expectation is correct now. Check out how expectations work. You ready? Check this out. This is how expectations work. You ready? We're dealing with the scientific. If you want to talk about science, let's deal with something scientific. All right. Let's take the mystical away, or let's take the spiritual and stop making it so mystical that it's not practical. Right. Let's keep it where it is. You ready? The earth starts off without form and void. What is without form and void? What is without form and void? Literally. Can you think of what is without form and void? We're so mystical with the spiritual, we can't even make it practical. Of the gap. Yeah. But once again, so the world, space, yeah, we could say space, but something's going on. It's not talking about space. It's talking about it's talking about this. So it's saying what? Barashit, bara, Elohim, at Shabayam, at Aret. So in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth, right? The heaven, not heavens, heaven. So heaven here is going to be explained, right? So, but we're talking about heaven and the earth. So we're not talking about space. And my wife said it, right? Gas. And it looks like some other people said it, right? So gas is without form and void. Without form and void. In the beginning, he created the heaven and earth, but heaven is going to be a particular heaven, because there are multiple heavens. But it says here a particular heaven. So in the beginning, he created heaven and earth. And the heaven and earth, something's going on where there's without form and void. Now, darkness upon the face of the deep. What happens with the deep? What's deep? Well, all of a sudden, it seems like there's something liquefying. It's hot, and it cools down, and now it's liquid, gas, liquefying, right? And the spirit of Elohim, Ravak, Ruach, she moved upon the face of the water, and Elohim says, let there be light, which is not physical light, because physical light doesn't show up until the fourth period of time, day 4. So what kind of light? When you study the word, it is enlightenment. So he said, let there be enlightenment. What came across the water to provide enlightenment? The Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit. She provides the enlightenment. And then it says what? So the spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the water. Elohim said, let there be enlightenment. There was enlightenment. He saw the enlightenment, that it was like him. We say good because we're in the Germanic stuff, but it really translates to it was very much so like himself. And then these things happened, and then he separated the enlightenment from the confusion, right? Just like when a baby is born, the baby can't see stuff because the baby's vision is blurred, especially because a lot of people flash a whole bunch of light in the baby's eye. Baby can't tell the difference between light and dark, so everything's in shadows, can't see shapes, right? Everything's very shadowy or very, pixelated almost, like, right? They can't see. So they're having a problem with it, and it takes them a little while to get their vision together. But for to make sure that there wasn't a lot of that going on, he has to separate the darkness from the enlightenment. And then it said the evening, the darkness, the confusion to the enlightenment, the rising was what? The first period of time, the first day. Now people think that the Bible is trying to literally say that happened in 24 hours. But once again, a yom or a day is a period of time. Right after that, so we don't know how long that is. We just know that's the first period of time that needed to happen. What happens in the second period of time? Now the stuff that has been liquefied, becomes separated. And it says that what? It says that there's a separation that happens, and he puts some of the water down here, spreads the water up top, puts rakia, this hard substance to keep them separated. And it says that the stuff that was basically above the bottom water, he called heaven. So this heaven is not the heaven that you call space, or the third heaven, which is where the Most High resides on the throne. It says there was another heaven that was put there, right? And this heaven, that we breathe in, literally, the kingdom of heaven is in you. This we call it now today the atmosphere. So the atmosphere has to come on. Why? Because things are going to have to exist on the earth. They need the atmosphere to survive. Right? And other planets that they keep telling us that they've studied and all this stuff, they keep saying that there's no atmosphere for something to survive. Well, here we have the atmosphere for us to be able to survive. He had to create the atmosphere. He had to separate the waters. He had to have water. He had to have gas first. So we have gas, liquid. Then the third period of time, right? The third day, it says that the earth came up. That's solid. Gas, liquid, now we have solid. And just like we see today, when we see all over the world today, if you look somewhere, you'll find it somewhere in the oceans where there's a bunch of volcanic stuff going on the bottom, and it builds on top of each other and hardens over time to where finally something comes above the water. You call it land. So it says the earth came out the water, and out of the earth, it says that there was herb yielding seed. Herb yielding seed comes out of the earth, right? So on the third period of time, you have to go through a process. It doesn't mean 24 hours. It just means over a period of time. We see this stuff happen today. That doesn't happen like that. If a volcano erupted underneath the sea, on the ocean floor, you wouldn't have an island today. It'd take a whole lot of time, wouldn't it? So you had this stuff that keeps building on top of each other, that right? Gas, liquid, solid. We keep on moving though. What's the fourth day? Now we see the light. If there's seed and there's water, and by the way, back before it rained, because rain wasn't from the beginning of time either, water used to shoot up from the ground. So you still have underneath you have all this water that's underneath the ground, just like the Bible describes. It's not saying anything different than it took you all these years to scientifically finally ascertain how it works. This stuff was from the beginning, right? From Badashit. Right, from the Son who comes out of the right family, who's one with the Father, who is our head, who's going to be destroyed for us by being led to the top, because he can see he's omnipresent and can see that Adam is going to go ahead and mess up. And since Adam's going to go ahead and mess up, he can see how Adam is going to go ahead and mess up, and therefore he needs to send a second Adam. All these terms that we're using or whatever, this same person who it says in John 1:1, in the beginning was the bit, or the word, and the word was Aleph, the word was Elohim, and the word was Aleph, Aleph bit, and the same was in the beginning. Nothing was made without him. Right? It's saying the same exact thing. We're having the same conversation. This isn't anything new. It's something you just catching up on scientifically. It's something that the Most High did because he spoke it. Universe, the one who spoke, a single spoken sentence, verse, universal. You got to go to the source of everything. So here we have on the fourth day, now comes the sun. First period of time was enlightenment. Now comes the sun. It says that the sun is there, the moon is there, the stars are there. If the sun, the moon, and the stars are there, right? Why do you need that? Because you just finished having land, and you got water now, and you got seed, but the seed, in order to grow into the herb yielding seed that can have other seed within itself and continue to renew the earth with the seed, it's all over the place. It's got to have some sunlight, because that has something that is akin to melanin. It's not going to be animal life, but it's plant life. And so that plant life needs sun to be able to have the chlorophyll, so that those cell walls and cell membranes and mitochondria and even the protons and electrons that we were having this argument earlier and all that stuff will be able to function correctly. And the magnesium and different nutrients and things that are in the soil, in the earth that came up, it's going to need all of those things that are going to come together as one, correct? Then after that, you have the fifth period of time, where now we got to have ants and things, all types of bugs and everything that are going to creep upon the ground and be able to keep the ground going the way it needs to. And we got to have fowl of the air, birds, to be able to make sure they take care of things as far as the firmament is concerned, right? What you call the firmament, the Lakia, to be able to fly up in the sky, the heaven, the atmosphere. right? But when we don't stop there, then we get to the sixth period of time. Now, the sixth period of time, things are made on the earth as far as animal, and then it makes a distinction, unlike evolution does. It makes a distinction and says animals are created. Now man is created. And by the way, it even talks about dinosaurs on the fifth day too. It talks about water creatures that are called sea serpents or sea dragons, right? Sea dragons translate to dinosaurs. Dinosaur just means awesome lizard or terrible lizard. So the Bible talks about awesome lizards and terrible lizards throughout. So it doesn't even have a problem with that. When people say you got to stop listening to creationists that say that there's no such thing as dinosaurs, the Bible doesn't even support that, and paleontology doesn't support that, right? But you keep on going, right? We keep on going, we keep on moving, right? And so now it says he rested inside of that. He rested inside. He said, let us make man and woman, right? He said, let us make man. The word man there in Genesis chapter 1, if you're using term Genesis chapter 1 is talking about a spirit. You talk about, then he said male and female made he them. Male and female is what the spirit goes inside of. There's a male man or a male spirit and a female man or a female spirit. Both are man, which is why you are humus man inside of a dirt body. The only thing that is allowed to live and operate on earth and to have authority over earth is a spirit inside of a dirt body. When he later makes Adam later on, now we're going to talk about when it gives you the process of how that was done. When with Adam, it's going to tell you that he was shaped out of the humus, which is adamach, out of the dirt, the humus, the dark, rich, nutrient earth. And then he had a man placed inside it, which is the spirit. However, Elohim had to breathe inside of him, which we call psyche or psychology. He became a living soul. That's how it comes together. It is a scientific conversation in which we're talking about the physiology and the spirituality. Aman, right? But we don't talk about that culturally correct. You see what I'm saying? That's why we don't talk about it being culturally correct. It literally tells you everything as far as science, what you would call scientific order. But who teaches it as scientific order? I can't get mad at the people if the people are supposed to be the masters and teaching them. Yeah, that's why Yashua would say, you call yourself a master? You're supposed to be a rabbi out here and you don't even know how this stuff works? Of course, the people out here perishing for lack of knowledge. Oh, this will be on YouTube. It's pretty much as soon as it uploads. When we finish on here, I just upload it. So it'll be on YouTube or on the podcast as well. I'm sorry, Sister Deborah. I missed that all long time ago. And Sister Helen, how you doing? Elisa, I'm sorry I missed you guys. You said I had to break it down to a sustainable recently about what church means. Is she tried to go on about dressing for church? Yeah, about that circus stuff for sure. Thank you, Andre, for being part of the community. If I missed your name, by the way, I apologize. You know, so we're having a conversation about stuff, and people don't want to talk about even the science of it. We're not having a proper conversation. We're not speaking the same language that somebody kept bringing up to me over and over and over again. Writing a book, what on the it's tough. I just don't have the time. I'm trying to finish up. I've had this idea in my head for the longest, and it just doesn't make sense. I've had an idea for like a virtual experience where basically I can do like a audio book, but I'll actually be explaining what I wrote and try to do that and give that out. Because we do have books and stuff, but it's just I just don't have the time to do it the same way. So I'm gonna have to, some of this stuff will probably be stuff that we, especially for maybe down the road for like fundraising stuff, we'll probably have some of this stuff that you can only find certain places. And we'll make sure that we do it, and we'll try to break it down into chapters, like so you can get like a playlist, so to speak, and just like you get like on a CD, you can have like go to this, go to whatever track. We'll probably have something like that. But as far as writing it out, I just don't really have the time. We might have somebody who down the road, maybe we can hire somebody who can just help me with the writing piece. Who are the true Avda or the true Hebrews? Well, I mean, we are. I mean, it's a big discussion. We can possibly talk about that more so on another thing we have on the podcast, a lineage series that's 80 something parts long, and it's really unfinished. I'm trying to get all 80 something parts to upload to YouTube before we continue it. It was on the old YouTube channel, And basically, when they canceled the old YouTube channel, we had to stop it. But it's 80 something parts. If you want to go on the podcast, it's called the Kofi Ofori podcast. Look it up. And we go literally, we talk about tribes, we talk about who went where, we show you what the world looked like, all that stuff. You said always knew science and Yahweh weren't separated, just us trying to understand Yahweh's creation. Yeah, of course. The Most High, we think the Most High wouldn't have any problem with science. Baker, thanks for being part of the community. I just realized, my lips are usually chapped, but they chat real bad today. Oh, well. It was 80 something. I don't know if it's 87. It's 80 something parts. But we were going in. I had expected to go like probably 6-7 months of just doing that. It didn't work out. YouTube channel is called #FindKofi, #FindKofi. If you look up one of our videos, you'll probably see #FindKofi somewhere on one of them. Pretty quickly. So just look up #FindKofi, FIND, as if you're searching for something, then my name, KOFI. You'll find it. If you're on YouTube, if you're on the podcast, you can just look in the information box with both of these, or the description box. But yeah, science, of course, goes with what the Most High says. You said, how many places can I find a book throughout my home? You kind of trip over them. I think they're everywhere. Right? Even in the kitchen, you're probably going, I don't know if you trip over one in the kitchen, but you definitely find them all over the place for sure. Find them in the car, find them in the trunk, find them everywhere. Let me see. How to learn all of this. Study. Because even the stuff we say, you study, show yourself approved. A workman that need not be ashamed, right? Dividing the word of truth, you just have to know the culture. Once again, like when we tell people study, people's idea of study is like, even that's cultural. We're guided by somebody else's culture. So when we say study, what usually people think is, okay, this is how people tell us we're supposed to study. Right? This is how people tell us we're supposed to study. We have book lists and stuff. We got them on our Patreon. I haven't actually done a book list in a while, so I need to give a book list on that. Actually, thanks for saying that. Oh, thank you, Bounty. Oh wow, once again, thank you so much. Appreciate you. We have but we do book lists on the Patreon. From time to time, I'll have something on or my wife will post something up. Oh wow, thank you again, Bounty. Things like that. So we do book lists. Same thing I say though again is comprehend the culture of what you get ready to read. We can give we could, if you knew Paleo Hebrew right now and you still didn't know the culture of what was going on as far as Paleo Hebrew, you would miss everything. It doesn't matter like what version of the Bible or what book, whether you're writing a book reading a book by Dr. Carter G. Woodson on the Black Church, or on the miseducation of the American Negro, or on the Black woman, or whatever, or whether you're reading Dr. John Henrik Clarke, or whether you're reading Dr. Amos Wilson, whether you're reading Dr. Joy DeGroy, whether you're reading Olawada Equiano, whether you're reading Flavius Josephus, that doesn't matter who you're reading, where you're reading. Tim Wise, Jane Elliott, Malcolm Shabazz, Malcolm X, Minister Malcolm X, excuse me, put respect on his name. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It doesn't matter who you're reading, where you're reading from. If you don't comprehend the culture that's coming out, you're going to get messed up. Are white people genetic mutations? Well, first of all, let me be very careful with that, because that's something that somebody can easily misconstrue what I'm about to say. Once again, it comes from expectation. First of all, there's no such thing really as a white person. And I'm not talking about coming from the thing, so there's really no such thing as a black person. No, there are tribes who've called themselves black for millennia. All right. So many millennia at that. Thousands upon thousands of years, there are people who call themselves black. But there's no such thing as there's no such group of people who ever called themselves white, because white didn't have a color. White is not a color. When people say the color white, they are wrong. Like if there's a white, watch this. If there's a white piece of paper and you were coloring as a child, can we make this practical again? If there's a white piece of paper, right? I wish I don't have a white piece of paper. I was gonna give you a bucket, but this bucket that we're growing stuff in, it's actually not white anymore. But I'll try to. Oh, wow. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. All right, but this bucket used to be white. Just pretend it's white. Okay, so this bucket right here, that's white. Okay, um, you see, you can't even call it white anymore because there's color on it, right? But let's just pretend this is white. All right, it used to be it's white. It means it has no color. If you were to color and make a painting on this, you would not put white paint on this, right? You would just leave wherever it's white. There's no need. If you had a white piece of paper as a child and they gave you crowns, right? You remember when you used to go to you remember you used to go to the store and stuff, or not to the store. You remember you used to go to a restaurant as a child, and they had a little crayons and stuff and everything, and you color. If the person had eyes, you wouldn't color the eyes. You wouldn't color the maybe you color the the iris, but you wouldn't color the eye. Why wouldn't you color the actual eyeball part? Because you knew it was white, right? So it wasn't supposed to have any color there. So you didn't put white on it. White is not a color. If I had oh, this was heavy. If I have something black on here, right? If I have something black, I would need to color it white. If I wanted it to look white in the area, I would have to put white. But when I put white on there, I'm not coloring it. I'm actually taking away the color. I'm covering the color up. So there's really no such thing as a white person. The social construct white is something that somebody made up to be able to say that they were pure, and they got you to believe that white was pure. But remember, white just means lack of color or something that's transparent. They tried to change the definitions recently, right? Petra Elohim loves us. Yashua died for our sins and rose 3 days later. Yashua is a dawn. Okay, thank you. People come on and do drive-bys, and stuff like that. But you got to comprehend. So you got to get past the social construct of white, right? And like I said, if you want to use the social construct, a real white person is somebody you never see because white has no color. So the people that run the world, but you don't know exist, they are the people that you would consider to be white. Those are the people who take from you and are clear and make things so bright in an area that it's hard to be able to see clearly what they're doing, right? That's what you would consider somebody to be white. Now, if you're talking about lack of melanin, well, I don't know if mutation is the word. I guess you could say mutation, but mutation is usually more so like somebody grows an extra, an extra leg or an extra arm, or there's two heads out of somebody. Lack of melanin is more so. What's the term? Not even mutation. If somebody lacks melanin, you would basically say like something happened. They would use the term genetically, genes, genealogy, all that stuff, genesis, etc. But something's happened as far as there is a problem. It's problematic to have less melanin. Because skin color, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean you have more or less melanin. But if somebody is what we would consider a white person, usually that means they have less melanin. Something has happened. There's something there's some kind of sickness there, because that's not agreeable. Now, it gets into a place I have to be very careful how I address that, because I know people want me to be like, a lot of people want it to mean that like you're mutated, so you're bad. You're like a fly. You're like the what like the fly or something like that back in the day from before. The guy who played Malcolm in Jurassic Park, whatever his name is, but back in the day of the fly, they want me to be able to say like, see, they're mutated, they're diseased people, they're blah blah. No, I'm not going there necessarily. We are the same people, but there is some melanin that's lacking, and the melanin is not supposed to be lacking. Like even if somebody has blue eyes or green eyes, people think that's just a color thing. It's just random. No, if somebody has blue or green eyes instead of brown, or even dark brown, even if somebody has brown eyes versus dark brown eyes, that's actually melanin deficiency. So we definitely can say they're deficient in melanin, which can cause certain issues. Also, too, you're dealing with a different type of melanin, too, which gets into a whole different type of conversation. But you're dealing with different type of melanin. So like people who are darker usually going to have selenium at the center of their melanin. People who are lighter as far as like extremely lighter, are usually going to be people who have sulfur at the center of their melanin, which is why once again the social construct white person can actually be out in cold and be fine. And you'd be like, how are you out here in shorts? It's 40 degrees out here. But if you got sulfur, sulfur is actually a very interesting. Sulfur is very interesting within itself, because sulfur, while you would think of it as being hot and this and that or whatever, sulfur actually is something that if you heat it up, it freezes, right? And if you put it in freezing temperatures, it heats up. Right? It's very interesting in that way. So if you put sulfur in freezing temperatures, right, all of a sudden the sulfur can go ahead and be there. So if you got sulfur at the center of your melanin, right, then you actually can go outside and be fine in the cold. And because of so much mixing and stuff of stuff over the years, whether it's through people genuine loving relationships or people who outright were colonized and RAP, what, there's a lot of different stuff that's going on, there. So I had to be very careful, as far as white and things like that. That bro, our hair is dry, that means it's unhealthy. No, that doesn't mean that at all. You think that white people, or are you talking about white people's hair is dry or black people's hair is dry? I don't comprehend. But something being dry doesn't mean, if it's dry, yeah, you could say technically it's unhealthy. But what's your definition of dry? That doesn't necessarily mean, I don't get that. Sorry, I'm trying to catch up with these comments, make sure I didn't miss any questions. There's nothing natural white in nature. Either is a reflection of light. Yeah, you have a couple things. Cauliflower, even though there's some people that probably would argue that cauliflower is not necessarily the original, but you do have some things that are white in nature. But it's usually a lack of, it's not usually, it's going to be a lack of melanin or a lack of even chlorophyll. If something has a lot of chlorophyll. So for example, the chlorophyll in your body, right? The leaves are not necessarily coming back to the trees as of yet. They're making their way back, right? You can see some coming back. But when you see a leaf up here, like even some of these leaves that are coming back, I don't know if you can see the ones I'm pointing to on TikTok. In this area over here, you can see that there's, let me see. Okay, right here, you can see that there's green around everywhere else, but this one's brown. Now, a lot of people think, oh, well, leaves only get brown or orange or yellow or whatever during, fall, but it's actually coming back in the spring. And this one right here, these are brown. Now, why are they brown? They're brown because they don't have enough magnesium to hold the chlorophyll, right? So there's a lot of stuff that goes on. So somebody can be magnesium deficient, right? And all of a sudden they start turning colors. Like you have some of you know what I'm talking about, where you feel like there's times that you've gotten lighter or darker, not just because of sun or lack of sun or too much sun or whatever, like sometimes because you're magnesium deficient, just like a plant can be magnesium deficient. So we're speaking on a lot of different things. You said we are all as children no matter what color we are. We're all as children no matter what color we are, as long as we follow the word of Yah, right? Yashua doesn't even believe that, or who you might call Jesus. It sounds like you might be somebody who will call him Jesus. He doesn't even teach that, right? I think we should actually say what he says if we believe in him. No, thank you, Janie. Appreciate you too, Queen. So the original humans contain all genetic variation we see today. Sure, sure. Hello, Frankly, how you doing? Said every event is inevitable or it wouldn't happen. Every event becomes because you make a choice or a decision, and then there's consequences. Okay, Boo. Was it Buniri? I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Buniri 3. Camille, thanks for being part of the community. Yeah, cotton is white as well, right? Yeah, exactly. And even though my hair, like a lot of people, like that's a great point, TJ. Like my hair, technically, if you want to say that, is people be like, "Oh, your hair, this, blah, blah, whatever." Like my hair is not brittle. People be like, "Oh, it looks brittle," even if you go to the loose parts or whatever. I promise you, like you're not gonna pull this out, right? You could try, like I guess if somebody tried hard enough, but you ain't just pulling my stuff out. You know what I'm saying? Because this is strong. It's strength, right? It's there's a lot of melanin in this. There's a lot of memory in this as well. You know. But yeah, somebody says we're not all, but Yahshua himself, Christ himself, he never taught that that everybody is his child. Once again, what drives your expectations? What is it that drives your expectations? Everybody is his child. Where do you find that? See what I'm saying? Like people will say stuff and you say that's your canon. Show me in your canon. Matter of fact, show me in anybody's canon where it says that just because you're born, you're accepted by whatever that deity, deist, nature, God, Elohim, etc. Show me where any scripture is going to show that in any canon. You're not going to find that. People just do that. People say that, right? People say that because they're trying to get you to, you know, act like everybody should have the same opportunity or act like everybody, not same opportunity. Everybody should have the same opportunity to get themselves together. However, everybody wants to act like the Most High himself says that everybody should be able to get it no matter what. Yeah, the Most High says we're all his creation, but not all his child. Even Yahshua said it when he was here on the earth. He made a point to say, you are of your father, the devil. Why would he say, if we all have the same father, why would he say some people's father is the devil? The word father means source. So don't act like everybody's source is the Most High. That's something you might want to put on because it's easier for you to go ahead and do whatever you want to do, or it's easier to allow people in your life to do whatever they want to do, or it's easier to let certain things go and blah blah. But the reality is you will not find you if you can show me the scripture in whatever version of the Bible you want, right? Well, maybe I shouldn't say that because people be making some foolish translations, but I'm pretty sure that you're going to have a really tough time finding me anything that says that everybody is a child of the Most High. Matter of fact, if we would just go do the book of Romans, right? We don't even have to go to work that hard. A lot of people like the book of Romans, right? So what about Romans chapter 8 and verse 19, where it says that the creature is waiting on the manifestation of the sons of Elohim? What do you think that means? You think that means that everybody is his son? Or you think that there are some creatures, some creation that would like to become sons, but they don't know how to do it. And they're waiting on us as sons of the Most High to manifest ourselves that people can say, oh, that's how it's done. Let's follow an example. Let's get in that environment. The creature is waiting. It doesn't even call them the human. It says the creature is waiting on the manifestation of the sons of Elohim. So you've never heard me say anything about color. When somebody comes on here, well, he didn't care about your color. Well, first of all, he does care about my color, or else he wouldn't have given me color. But he doesn't care about my color as far as my salvation. Sure. That being said, though, right, we're not going to act like just anybody can get in on this. I mean, heck, if you smoke weed, you don't believe just anybody can get on this. You got to at least put something in on it. And you think the Most High is going to let you into eternity? You know what I'm saying? Like real talk. Like you don't even think that if somebody asks you to get in on your weed, you before you puff pass, did you put in on this? Something. At least I gotta know you. Who is this? You just some random stranger talking about can I hit that? You know how much I had to work extra just to be able to get this little dime, little dime bag right here. You think you just gonna smoke this? You got 5 on it, something like that. Put something on it. You know what I'm saying? Put something on it, right? They sang a whole song about having at least 5 on it. You got to put at least 5. But people up here, oh no, you can just do whatever you want. You ain't got to put anything on it, and you can come into the kingdom. Shoot, at least you got to put 5 on it, something. You said who buying dime bags? For real. That's a bar right there, for real. I ain't even gonna hold you. I don't even know if I ever did buy one for real when I was out there like that. I wasn't even really out there like that. I ain't really smoke like that, but I did smoke. I ain't gonna act like I never smoked. And for real, I told people this. Y'all gonna have to pray for me. If y'all ever hear Pastor suffering from any of that C word or whatever like that, y'all just gonna have to be forgiven, because I might be sitting up there toking right while we doing the live. Because I don't have a problem with somebody smoking weed if it's for medical purposes. I think you should probably eat the weed, not smoke it, right? But nevertheless, right? Nevertheless, y'all have to pray for me. There's gonna be some cannabis oil somewhere up in this piece. If y'all ever hear that I got that C word, oh, I promise you. I promise you, y'all just gonna have to be upset. Y'all just gonna have to go away for a little bit and wait till I heal and I'm not smoking it no more. Just keep it at 100. I ain't got no problem with it. If y'all doing it out there medical purposes, don't be out here abusing it for medical purposes. I'm just telling you, right? But you should be eating it, not smoking it anyways. I'm just saying. But I'll be out here with a salad, right? Straight up, nothing but weed up in the salad, whatever flavor they sell. Y'all just gonna have to be mad at me. But anyway, um, but like you try to, I don't know how I got all the way over here. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for bringing me back on track, right? But you trying to do all this stuff out here, right? And you trying to do all this and say, oh, but you ain't gonna put 5 on it. You ain't gonna come into the camp. You're not even gonna follow any laws. See what drives your expectation? You're not even gonna follow no laws. Like even the criminal is out here. Even the criminal be out here. And thank you for the love. I couldn't catch who the last person was that sent that gift. Thank you. Right? You said ain't gonna smoke one. I mean, I ain't got none right now. I'm not against it. People around me smoking, I ain't got no problem with it. It's not a sin to smoke. The herbs are for the healing of the nations. Revelation 22:2. One of my wives, if not her favorite verse, definitely one of her favorite verses. Right? She's a herbalist, so she loves that verse. But Revelation 22:2, the herbs are for the healing of the nation. Right? Nevertheless, though, but I do what's necessary. I'm not going to do it just because. I do what's necessary. Right? But anyways, when we sit there and we talk about these things, right? People got this idea like I don't even got to obey no laws. I don't got to do nothing. I don't got to put 5 on it. I ain't got to show up there. All I got to do is just sprinkle some Jesus on whatever I'm going through, and then that's it. Appreciate you too, Brother Clem. Right? You said one of my wives. I ain't said nothing about one of my wives. What are you talking about, Strawberry? You trying to get me in trouble? I ain't said nothing about one. I only have one wife. I don't even think I said my wife likes the scripture about the healing of the nations. At least one of her favorite scriptures is about the healing of the nations. I ain't say nothing about about more than one wife. You about to get me messed up on here. I rebuke that. Right? See, my wife coming to me, one wife. See, yeah, I'm husband to one wife. I listen to what the word says. Wow, I'm sorry. I got to get back on track. Yeah, one of my wife's. Okay, I can see where you got that. I said one of my wife's favorite scriptures with an F. One of my wife's favorite scriptures. That's what I said. WIFE apostrophe S. Apostrophe meaning my wife, that she is mine and I am hers. Right? Wife's favorite scriptures. Okay, I see what happened there. All right. Yeah, we don't do the multiple wives thing over here. Well, we didn't talk about weed and this now. I'm sorry. It's funny. Where were we at? Somebody help me. Where were we at? I don't even know what direction we were going. where were we going? I don't know. Somewhere around, basically like uh, 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 it's good to have fun in the kingdom. Put 5 on it. Yeah, at least put something on it. People don't want law and all that. They don't want anything. Hey, I want to participate in the kingdom, but don't hold me accountable for nothing. I don't have to pay anything. I don't have to live anyway. I don't have to be righteous in any way, shape, or form. Just sprinkle some Jesus on it. Your expectation is driven by fallacy, by lunacy, and it's ludicrous. You said, can women be pastors these days? Women can be leaders in any way, shape, or form throughout the story of man. The only thing I can't, well, no, that's true. Yeah, they can be leaders. Moses' sister was a prophetess or a prophet. Um, Second John, it talks about a letter that's written to the elect lady. The elect lady was her name. She was elected to be pastor. Um, Deborah, Deborah is a famous judge of society. Yeah, the leadership of Esther, right? Deborah was such a great judge that men would not go to battle unless she went to fight with them. So we've never had a problem with a woman being a leader. As far as the king of Israel, the kings of Israel have been different. They've been kings because of the bloodline going from male to male. We talked about that even in Hebrew characters class and in our basic Hebrew class, the bloodline piece coming from the Abba versus Amma thing, but even Abba and Amma become one. So even if it said King David is not King David without Bathsheba, right? Matter of fact, King David's son Solomon technically ain't even considered to be his because it's always considered to be Uriah's wife. Well, Solomon is cleansed by the Most High, but technically Solomon is considered to be the fruit of David, but he comes from Uriah's wife, Bathsheba. Bathsheba, right? Um, so there's a lot of stuff that's there, right? But yeah, we have no problem with women being in position. If a woman were to be pastor, that's fine. She still has to be obedient as far as being, she'd have to be under a husband. Am I saying women can be heads? I'm saying a woman can be a pastor. The word pastor in our culture is not what you guys might make it out to be. The word pastor, it means heleth. So I'm a heleth. That means I'm an assembler. That's what it means. I'm an assembler. you know so I don't have, I use my gift of teaching and things like that, but there's some pastors that don't teach at all. They don't have to. That's not their gift. They might not be great teachers. They teach through their lives, but their job is to assemble people into an environment. So once again, this whole concept of male, female, he, she, this, that, or whatever, we are oftentimes going off of somebody else's expectation. I don't go off of others' expectations. I go off of what the Most High teaches. So if a woman is a pastor of an assembly, guess what? When she goes home, who's still the head of her house? Her husband. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. If a woman is the pastor of an assembly, when she goes home, guess what? Her husband is still the head of that house. He's still the foundation. That doesn't mean, but once again, a husband is not over his wife. He's not under his wife. He's not in front of his wife. He's not behind his wife. A wife is not over her husband. She's not under her husband. She's not in front of her husband. She's not behind her husband. She is, and he is, they are both beside one another. It's a different cultural conversation. So I don't step outside of the culture, right? I don't mind having conversations with people outside the culture, but I'm still going to stay connected to the throne. He said if there's no physical husband, she's still a wife in covenant with Yahweh. Aman. That's her first husband. Just like every husband should be in connection with the Most High, and he should be a wife to the Most High as well. The only way that you're qualified to be a husband to your wife is if you are a wife to the Most High. We just keep trying to put titles on the stuff and go by somebody else's mentality. Bavakasha, Betty, thank you. So we got to get to a different place, a different mindset of this. We're going off once again. What is driving your expectations? Once again, the word drive legit means that somebody has to employ you to be able to take them from point A to point B. That's what the word legally means. If somebody drives, if you have a driver's license, you are licensed to be under somebody's employ, right? To take your car from one place to another. If you are driving and you have a driver's license from the state of Minnesota, what you were saying is that Minnesota says that you can be employed by us as a state. We employ you and we allow you therefore to be able to drive your vehicle. That's why they can put that's why legally somebody can put a limit on where you can drive to, right? Where you can travel to, because you told them that you were driving. You got license to drive. The fivefold, yeah. I know some people call it 5 or 4, of course. It's in the Bible. So, yeah, some are apostles. The word apostle just means missionary, by the way, really, for real. But, there are some apostles, right? And some prophets, and some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers. Am I a private citizen? Yes, I live as a private citizen. And private and public don't mix, that's why you got to be in the public, but not of it, in the system, but not of it, in the world, not of it. It's just the next level. Really, it's not even the next level. It is what the Bible talks about. The Bible talks about you being in the system and not of it. How are you going to be able to make sure that you're living free, but you're a debt slave? We having different conversation. We talking about this stuff, but we don't live it. Still using that social security number for everything? Well, you're in the system, right? Still don't have land you can call your own? You're in the system. Still licensed to make sure that you go from this place to that place? You're in the system. So yeah, so what drives you? What drives your expectation? Yeah, yep, on it right now. One place, one of the places. We're working on land for everybody right now too. Yah's Land Project 83, YLP 83. Working on that right now. You said you're in the Old Testament. It said no woman can pastor. Is that correct? Where does it say no woman can pastor? I'd have to see. But what is the word that they're using for pastor? I had to see that verse specifically to see what context you're talking about. What verse are we talking about that says that no woman can be a pastor ever? Not really in remittance. Well, I mean, I know of well, let me be honest. I've heard of a remittance transfer. I don't use them. I don't need it, so I don't know what it is. In all honesty, authentication of a birth certificate not that difficult at all. We usually just go the route of DS11. DS11 for us is pretty quick as well, and usually easier, especially if you're dealing with people that are dealing with adoption and stuff like that. Well, I don't know if you want to tap into the Federal Reserve and all those things. Like for me, stay away as far away from the Federal Reserve as you can. I mean, just get your own. The Federal Reserve is into some stuff that you don't want to be a part of. They own a huge percentage of the money, or that's or the labor basically that people don't realize is really in place of the money that they think they're spending. So, can you explain speaking in tongues? Because sometimes people just sound alike as if they're mimicking. Well, I mean, speaking in tongues is a gift. Speaking in tongues is supposed to be something that you're supposed to be able to utilize. Also, tongues doesn't just mean in a hidden language as well, or a heavenly language, or even people were saying a demonic language. But speaking in tongues is not just in a heavenly language. Speaking in tongues is even speaking in different languages. So, but sometimes the Most High, through the Spirit, some people have the ability to be able to have a conversation. Speaking in tongues usually edifies the person and does not edify the body, which is why Paul's prayer, Paul's hope, and his wish is that everybody, if he had it his way, he said everybody who spoke in tongues would actually be able to speak, or would be able to interpret what they say, because the tongues just edify the person. But if it's a message for everybody, then there'll be an interpretation somewhere, shape, or form, and there'll be somebody that can interpret it so that you can hear what the person's getting. But when somebody's speaking in tongues, usually it's a one-on-one thing with the Most High. So, when people do the multiple, we're all going to speak in tongues at the same time, just automatically, that sure, you could say that's like Shamat, or like or Shavat, excuse me, Shavat, or like a Pentecostal experience. However, that's like not a everyday occurrence. The Bible doesn't even talk about it, except for like once, twice, possibly, if you want to take a scripture to kind of be about the same thing. But Really, that happened, that experience of Pentecost even happened on Shabbat. Shabbat is something that they kept the law on. It's actually something that they met in the same place. People misrepresent that scripture. Acts chapter 2 happened because they kept the holy day of Shabbat or of Pentecost. Pentecost already existed. Pentecost was something they were supposed to do 50 days after Passover. So, like for us this year, April 15th is Passover. Go 50 days past that. As soon as we get to that, we're going to do Shabbat. That's Pentecost. We're supposed to come together. And when they came together to keep that, that's when they started speaking in tongues. And they didn't speak only in heavenly tongues, right? They spoke in tongues that other people recognized in their own language. So speaking in tongues is oftentimes misrepresented. But once again, what's leading your expectations? If they're all speaking in one speak, if they are speaking all the same tongue in one community, they would question Yahweh for guidance. It says I they Minister Select Song. I'm sorry, or they I don't know. You have the gift of speaking in tongues. Cool. Yeah, Minister Select Song, and she has the gift of speaking in tongues as well. Hello, different realm. Thanks for being on with us. Strawberry, thanks for being part of the community. Yeah, so it once again it comes from your expectations. A lot of people have a lot of different expectations. You said what was March 21st? Some people go off of they have an argument about what new moon they should be about. We believe that the new moon is April 15th, so we go off. I'm sorry, we believe the new moon is based off of April 2nd, and therefore we should have sorry, I'm getting myself mixed up. April 2nd, and therefore we should have Passover April 15th. Others believe that their new moon would be March 8th, I believe, and therefore they did March 21st. It's one of those things we've talked about before. Long story short, if you did it on March 21st, and you do what you do on March 21st. Those who are on the podcast, by the way, looks like the podcast is going to shut down in a couple minutes. Thank you for being on. We appreciate you. I don't see us being too much longer on the other platforms, but you can always come on and join us on YouTube or TikTok, and we look forward to having you join us to continue the conversation. Juan, thanks for being part of the community. You were saying regarding speaking tongues. Yeah, I was just saying, it says if they are speaking all the same tongue in one community, I would question Yahweh for guidance. Is it they would, or they all would, or I'm not sure what you were saying there was what I was saying. Yeah, April 1st, new moon, April 2nd, being, yeah. Oh, people would mock. Okay, people would mock them. Okay, I got you. Okay, I'm with you now. So yeah, well, once again, all this stuff, what drives your expectation? What if you, and once again, driving means that you have to be hired. To be licensed to drive means that somebody hired you and licensed you once they hired you. Whose expectations, all this stuff being said as we get ready to take our leave, whose expectations have you hired? Once again, we talked about this earlier. It's a choice. Whose expectations have you hired? Oh, wow. I didn't even realize. We got some great stuff going on here. Mm. Some great stuff going on here. Y'all know what these, what these are, right? Some great stuff going on here. I didn't even realize it was like that. This is just near where I showed you the deal the other day from. It's like right above it, and I didn't even see it was coming in like that. I see there's some mites trying to get up on here. They're gonna have to spray it with some soap and water. Yeah, I know. This is garlic. Yeah, that's excellent. I didn't even know this was out here. Excellent job, babe. She said just some kitchen scratch, some garlic scratch. Like that's how easy they just put it out here, let it grow. Some of it's not even that deep into the ground. Well, really, with these, you aren't really supposed to put them extremely deep in the ground. But yeah, excellent. 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 He said Elohim wants us to wait in expectations like a farmer waiting for their crop. Hmm. Yeah, I'm on. Right. You sow the seed and you do it properly. You till the ground. You wait for it to go. Yeah, just soap and water. I learned that from my wife. But yeah, just soap and water helps with those. So I got to remember it now. But yeah, soap and water helps with that. But yeah, so I think that's all. Unless we have any other questions, comments, or concerns, I really don't have anything left. Just once again, what your expectations are driving you, and as you can see on here, especially even as we started, somebody started immediately with, "Oh, thank you." Is it Shlanda? Thank you very much. We started immediately with somebody. What about white supremacy? Right? Expectations. What about why are you saying something about science that I don't agree with? Well, your expectations come from somebody else's culture. If you know your culture, if you know the expectation. Well, like I said, it's I mean, people say April 1st, April 2nd slash, it's April 1st for me. I would think April 1st, like six o'clock ish, six p.m. You know, but either way, like basically, Passover is well. Long story short, you're dealing with April 1st, April 1st, April 2nd. That's basically New Year's. Matter of fact, think about your taxes and all that, right? Isn't that April 1st or something like that? Or the April 15th? April 15th when Passover is. Right. Yeah, you can do Passover again if you want. You can join us. We got a matter of fact, I think we have the link for it on Zoom now. And then the 8 nights, I'm sorry, the 7 nights prior to it, because we're going to do the 7 last words leading up to Passover. So for those that want to join us for each night, we're going to do an hour service each of the 7 days before Passover, and then Passover will be 2 hours each of those prior services. Those 7 nights in a row, those will be at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time, and then the one will be at Passover itself will be at 7. And on one of those, we're actually going to make sure Minister Select Sonia goes from being Minister Select Sonia to Minister Sonia officially. So we're excited about that. She's going to give us a mighty word and join us for that. I believe that is what April the, am I, hold on, 14th, 13th, April 12th, April 12th, April 12th will be hers. So if you want to join us for that, we were trying to see about doing it on the lives and doing some stuff, but it's going to be kind of difficult, especially because people come on and they make comments. Sometimes it becomes kind of distracting and this and that. So it's probably best for us to just do all of it on Zoom. We'll still be on live during the risings, but we probably would just do all of those nights on Zoom only. So if you want to join us for that, we'll have the oh, okay, April 12th. Deja said that's her born day. Okay, cool. So you'll be able to, if you're able to make it with us, if you're not celebrating your born day with somebody else, you'll be able to celebrate Minister Select Sonia getting her license, which we're excited about. Right. Thank you, everybody. I really don't have much more. We appreciate the King Queen, each and every one of you. If you're on YouTube, the podcast is off now. If you're on YouTube, just look in the description box to be able to find out how you can get in contact with us or stay connected to what we're doing. If you're on TikTok, just take time out. The Zoom information, just get in contact with us. So if you want to get in contact with us, you can always, if you're on TikTok, you can DM us. If that doesn't work for some reason, you can just look in our bio. And then you can also look where it says website, click on the link tree there where it says website, and then you'll be able to get basically find us or do whatever you like to do with us. Yah's land project, as far as being involved with getting the land, being part of the holy days, being on different committees if you like, men's meetings, women's meetings, our weekly meetings that we do, early rising Bible study session, our Thursday rising prayer session, the podcasts, whatever it is. We have a lot of different things. YouTube channel, Twitter. We don't really do much on Twitter, but Twitter. We don't really do much on Clapper anymore. But Clapper has some things. If you want to go back and look at some things that probably are removed from TikTok and other places where you can still find them. Facebook. If you'd like to contact us, myself, one of the other people on staff, we definitely are appreciative of you, and we definitely would love to be able to make sure that we are, committed to you, and as you are committed to the Most High. And that's what we come on here for. And so we're thankful and grateful. Passover coming up April 15th. We're in the process of getting the leaven out of our homes. We're praying for all of you that your expectations be realistic, and that from now on, whatever life has taught you or shown you, that you were able to use that to show where you need to have realistic expectations from this point on. Once again, it's our expectations that are driving us. We're thankful to you all. We're grateful for you all. We appreciate you all. And please study this word to make sure that you can not just be a hearer of it, you can be a doer of it as well. Right. So we're thankful and grateful for you for being on today. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life disabled to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. We give, once again, all honor and praise to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim, that without him, none of this would be possible. And we appreciate you for being on today. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again, please remember, as always, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom. See you later on this evening for Shabbat and live at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. And don't forget, this Sunday, my wife and I, the Honorable Mind, she'll be back on with us on our special Sunday session, our special session that we do every last Sunday of each month. And we'll have her on to talk about something specific. So you guys be ready for that, to hear what she has to say and to bless us with her presence. And thank you once again. Appreciate you all. Shalom. Take care. Peace.